Let's get into it. Let's get into the roster right away. Just let me know if you guys can't hear Eric, and I'll try to adjust what I can on the back end. So this morning, we're going to be talking about a few topics here. So Aiden Hutchinson has come out and said that 2024 is the year. What does that mean? Is it Super Bowl or bust for Aiden Hutchinson this year? Is that what he's trying to tell us? Do we believe it? We'll dig into it. We'll see what he had to say. Then Jake Bates tells all about his contract and why exactly the Detroit Lions was a perfect fit. And we'll get into a little bit of that, a little backstory on him. And our linebacker room. So there was a sports analyst that came out with the 32 teams. What do they need to, do before training camp, or who do they need to hire? What players are they short on? It was that kind of a topic. And they mentioned that the Detroit Lions linebacker room was still a bit short. Now, I'm going to give my opinion on that and kind of tell you why maybe I have an opposite opinion, at least for 2024. And then positional battles. So we're getting really close to training camp. And we know that it is, like Brad Holmes said, going to be a bloodbath for some of these positional battles. So we're going to highlight a few of those and talk about, which positions are going to have the biggest battles and why. We're not going to quite do our 53-man prediction that Roger Chappis wants. Maybe I'll do that tonight with Chef. I'm not real sure if we'll have time tonight. Otherwise, on Friday morning, we do plan on doing a show on Friday morning. At least I do. I don't know if Eric's busy, but maybe we'll do it then so he can have some time to kind of go through the roster and figure out, what he thinks. So without further ado, let's get into our sponsors this morning. Sports Spider. Please check out sportspider.com. It is the best sports website to get all of your sports in one place. I really love Sports Spider. They do a great job. They have everything on there, but you can tailor your experience to what you want to see. It's free. You can sign up. I think that there's some paid options as well. But Sports Spider does a great job from everything from MLB, NHL, NFL, UFC, MMA, all of it. Racing, even snowboarding. If you want it, it's there on sportspider.com. And then, of course, Uper Lights, the rock that is kind of taken over the world. Eric, tell us about Uper Lights.
Yeah, so Uper Lights is your one-stop shop for everything UV. If you need a flashlight for looking for the glowing rocks on the beach or anything else UV, uperlights.com is your place to get it.
All right. So if you guys don't know, Eric, I would like to know just a little bit more. So I read an article on you the other day, and I got to tell you, you're all over the internet. So I read an article about when you founded The Rock and how it really changed the landscape for rocks and minerals. A new finding like this doesn't happen very often. And you stumbled across it because what I read is you were looking for a better way to find agates. And you were using a black light type of flashlight. Were you actually using the nanometer type of light then, or was it just a black light?
Well, what happened was I went out with the wrong light because I had went to a rock show in Wisconsin, and a buddy of mine had a big giant UV light, right? And his light was shortwave. I didn't know what wavelength it was. So there are three different wavelengths. There's shortwave, midwave, and long wave. So you have 254 nanometers, which is shortwave, 315 for midwave, and 365 for long wave. And I bought a light off of eBay because it had an ad with a little silver flashlight with a green fluorescing agate next to it. And I thought that would be an agate light. So I went out looking for agates and found something completely different. And it has transformed my life and my business. And I no longer work for a casino. I work for myself. And I've gotten millions of new people into hunting for fluorescent rocks at night.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's really cool that. So tell everybody what the rock is, though. There's a specific mineral that's in it.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
So they are a nepheline cyanite rich in fluorescent sodalite brought down by glacial activity from the Coldwell complex in Ontario, Canada. So that is the technical term for these rocks. But I'm a Uper from the UP of Michigan, right? We're called Upers up here. And we take that slang term not very lightly. We really like it. And we use it and we have embraced the term Youper. So I picked Youper for where I'm from and Light They Light Up. But when I discovered them, I didn't know you could find them on all 5 of the Great Lakes, 13 different states, farm fields, gravel pits, railroad beds, dirt roads, driveways, landscape rock. I didn't know you could find them all over the place, but you can. And it just gets everybody out in their park or a canyon or a river or a beach looking for something new at night. And it opens up a whole new world of rock hunting. You're not limited to just daytime hours now.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I know that we've talked about trying to do a Lions fan tour. I don't know how much time you're going to have this summer or even this fall. It gets pretty cold up there pretty quickly, but I think we're going to try to put together just a very specific Lions fan tour for rock hunting up near Brimley. Michigan. Yeah. So we'll come back on that as we figure out a date and a time that will work for Eric. It's going to be at night, so you have to plan accordingly. Camping, hotel, something. Eric will have a lot of good ideas on his new map that will tell you a lot more information. You can find that on uperlights.com. All right, enough of the sponsorship this morning. I love this rock thing, though, man. It's cool. I got into rock hunting a few years ago. I suck at it, but now that I know somebody that knows what they're doing, maybe I'll get a little bit better. So they're still saying that Eric has low audio. Let me try to send him up a little bit more. Eric, just double check your back end. Make sure that it's on at least 85.
Let me see.
See, when I turn it up, it starts going red.
Yep. So I am at 85. I even boosted my dB, 1 dB on the Roadcaster.
That's just really odd. Like nothing is different from yesterday.
Nope. And our levels were pretty even yesterday. We just had the echo thing going on.
Yeah, we don't have an echo, right? We don't have an echo. I think that's the main thing that we want to try to avoid.
Yep.
But something's definitely different. Let me just check the control room here. Let me just make sure there's nothing back there that I'm missing.
Okay. This is a good time of year to get all these little bugs fixed.
You know, we had it fixed last night again, and then I turn everything off and turn it back on, and it's changed.
Yeah, everybody says no echo.
Okay, that's good. So then I'll turn up the desktop audio a little bit more then if there's no echo.
Yeah, just says just low audio.
Okay. So adjust your desktop audio on your PC.
Okay.
Turn it up to 90. And then we're just going to have to roll. You guys are going to have to turn up your volume on your phones or wherever you're listening from this morning. But let's get rolling. Let's get rolling into this. I apologize about these little technical things. It's crazy, man. Every day is a different event, it seems like, in streaming. And it shouldn't be. It should be. I mean, other podcasts don't have issues. And I don't understand what they're doing differently than what I'm doing because it's no different.
They said that did it. Eric's audio is good.
Okay. I guess we'll have to keep you at 90 from here on out.
All right.
All right. So let's talk about Jake Bates. Polarizing athlete that hit the internet this year in a big way. But Jake Bates kind of tells a little bit about his contract, why he chose the Detroit Lions. But as we are well aware, the Detroit Lions signed former Michigan Panthers kicker Jake Bates to a 2-year, $1.98 million contract that included $150,000 guaranteed and a $100,000 signing bonus. Clearly, the Lions were not playing around here. They went above and beyond any other NFL suitor to ensure that Jake Bates was going to become a Detroit Lion this summer and hopefully beyond. Bates could be the answer to the Lions' revolving door at kicker or at the kicker position. We've seen more than, I think he's the 9th guy now since 2021 that has come in to kick for the Detroit Lions. That's a crazy amount of kickers in such a short amount of time. And the story of how he got here is as impressive as his leg strength, to be honest with you. And that made him a household name this offseason. Such a household name. I mean, even the Fox play-by-play announcer, Kevin Krugler, said a star is born in the UFL. Of course, when he nailed that 64-yard opening game kickoff to start the season, Jake Bates was everywhere. He polarized the internet. And the reason why he signed in Detroit, I don't think that there's a real secret to this, but we'll take a look at kind of what he just said. He said Detroit really felt like home. Even outside of all that stuff, it just felt good. And there's no real feeling. There's no real words to describe what the feeling is. It just felt good there. The people there were awesome. I definitely felt the love, and I'm super, super excited to be in such a football-heavy city that loves the Lions and supports the Lions, and I just can't wait to be part of it. I will tell you this much, Jake Bates. The Lions fans have been incredible supporters for decades, even when the team was dog crap, which has been for many of our years. You know, I'm 44 years old this year, and the Lions have been good maybe 3 times. So if that tells you anything, I'm still here. I'm still invested. I'm still a season ticket holder. And there's many more just like me. So you do have the best fan base in the world behind you, and you're going to feel it quickly, especially week 1, game 1 against the Rams. Bates also spoke about the good vibe he got upon paying a visit to the Lions. He said this: when you walk into the building, just the feel of it, the culture that the coaching staff has brought in, and the buzz around the city, the excitement for the team. There's so many intangible things that go into it with the feeling around the Lions right now. Obviously, last season was awesome for them, and I just can't wait to get up there and help any way that I can to hopefully do well for this city. I think there was a lot of things that went into it when he's starting to talk about his contract. And he said there's a whole thing that after everything that happened and we went through that whole process, my agent and I sat down, and he was super helpful through everything. There's just a bunch of different things. Every situation is different. That's just where we felt most at home, most comfortable. So hearing Jake Bates say these types of things, I mean, of course, Eric, I know you're not surprised at what he's saying, right? But what's your reaction to him, you know, just feeling so at home and so, you know, enveloped by the Detroit Lions community and the fan base in the city?
Well, I have to say, you're welcome to all the people who wanted Jake Bates here in Detroit, because I went down to Detroit. I went to a Michigan Panthers game, and I talked to Jake Bates before the game and after the game, and I did everything in my power to convince that kid to come to the Detroit Lions. So hopefully I rubbed off on him, and that's why he came. But seriously, I did talk to him before and after the game, got a couple autographs from him. And I asked him, I said, hey, what do you think about coming to the Detroit Lions? And he had to give me the PR response. He had to say, you know, I'm very happy being a Michigan Panther for the time being. And he gave me a wink. And I know that what that wink was. That wink was, hey, I'm coming to the Lions. I already got my mind made up. He was coming. He knew it. I knew it. I felt it. I even told him, hey, man, you're going to look awesome in Honolulu blue. I can't wait to see you kicking for the Lions in this building in just a couple of months. And look, it came true. I was so happy about this whole signing of him. Seriously. And the first time I saw him kick was week 1 against the Battle Hawks. He kicks that 64-yarder for the game winner with time expiring, and they ice him. And he hits it. And then they do it again, and he hits it again, and would have been good from 70 again. And then the next week he comes out and does it again and hits a 60-something yarder. And when I was there, he was hitting everything. He didn't miss anything when I went to the game, the week 2. And the stuff he was hitting in pregame, if you go back and look at my reels on Facebook, you see he's kicking a couple of 70-yarders on my reels before the media started showing his kicks from a couple weeks later, where he was doing it in practice and outside and stuff. So this kid has one hell of a leg, and he's super humble. He's super easy to talk to, and I can't wait to see him doing some kicking in the preseason. I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm super excited, but I have a theory. And I mean, what would a morning show be without a Will Rock theory, right?
There we go.
So I have a theory about why maybe the Lions are really on the hunt for another kicker. And I really don't think it's everything having to do with leg strength. I mean, that's a far-reaching theory, right? But let me explain. So did the Lions bring him in based on his ability to place the ball with high accuracy, not just field goals? And now with the new kickoff rules, we may not see Jack Fox kicking the ball off anymore, right? It's going to be Jake Bates if he's on this team. And the reason why I think that Bates, he kind of got his start for the Tomball High School football team. But it wasn't really part of his original plan to be a football player. He was, or nor was it his best sport, really. He was a soccer player. And as a senior in high school, Bates committed to Central Arkansas on a soccer scholarship, and then following in the footsteps of his older brother, Jordan, to play soccer. But after 2 seasons of collegiate soccer, Bates kind of reset his sights on a return to football. And it was an improbable task, obviously, for a kicker who never made a field goal in high school. But Bates, his determination would really lead him to stints at Texas State and later again at Arkansas, serving as the kickoff specialist. So he was primarily just known as a guy that just kicked the ball off. He never made field goals, never attempted field goals. So my theory here is that he is brought in because he's got very good accuracy with his leg in other than field goal attempts. Does that make sense? I mean, having a soccer background, you're able to place that ball and put spin on the ball that most people can't even dream of. It's extremely difficult to do what they do. I've watched limited soccer in my lifetime, but I've always been, I guess, in awe over the fact of how they're able to curve that ball and, I mean, tight windows. I mean, from the sideline around into the goal. It's crazy. But it's also not uncommon for schools to really have specialized kickers either. But Arkansas was willing to have Bates join as a walk-on despite having one of the best kickers in the country on the team already in Cam Little, who was a 6th-round pick in this year's draft. So, I mean, you would think that the room was very full. You've got one of the best kickers in the draft on your team already, and now you're bringing in a specialist in Jake Bates. Now, kickoff specialists are obviously known for their legs, not only with, having the strength and the power to deliver the ball where they want it, typically through the end zone. But Bates also ranked 4th nationally in yards per kickoff at 64.47, 3rd in touchbacks at 64, and 1st in touchback percentage, 85.3. He never attempted a field goal at either stint with Texas State or Arkansas, but he did earn first-team All-SEC honors as a kickoff specialist, and that is nuts to me. As a reserve specialist, this guy is making All-SEC team honors. So that's my theory. I think that they were looking for somebody that could play outside of the box because these new kickoff rules, man, you have to put that ball, right inside that red zone, right? It can't go into the end zone. It can't fall short of the end. It's got to be in that red zone. So that's why I think that they bring in this guy in because they know that he has the ability to do wonders with the ball that, most kickers, maybe they can't. They kick the ball straight. I mean, obviously they have to, worry about wind and everything else. Just like a sniper, a kicker has to worry about the wind factor and the adjustment and the proper spin and everything else. I think that Jake Bates is clearly the specialist to help with these new kickoff rules. So that's my theory. What do you think?
Yeah. And I think Brad and Dan are thinking ahead more than a lot of other teams because of this kickoff rule. This kickoff rule might stick around. We might have this year after year after year. This might not just be a one-year experiment. And if it does end up being a permanent thing, that's where players like Sion Vaki and who was our special teams captain last year?
Jalen?
Yeah, Reeves Maben and Jake Bates. You put those 3 guys on the field, that's thinking ahead. You're light years ahead of everyone else. And you have to be able to roll with the punches in this game and come up with a different plan sometimes. And sometimes that plan includes special teams. And I think special teams is going to be much, much, much different than anything we've ever seen before. You're going to have 2 guys back there that can grab the kick, and you have to have two guys back, which is so much different than before where you just have one guy back near the end zone. And the kickers are definitely going to be trying to place it somewhere between the 5 and the 25, somewhere in there.
I think their wheelhouse is going to be that 5-yard line. I mean, that's where they want to stand that ball on its end and stick it, right around that 5-yard line.
The end zone, then the other team gets to start at the 30.
I think the 35 or the 40. I'm not real sure. I'm not real sure.
These kickoff rules are real confusing, but I know Brad and Dan have done their homework on this because they don't want to be giving teams any extra yardage, and that may be an advantage for them. Having a kicker who can put the ball where they need it to go every single time. And field goals be damned, it might be a case of maybe Bates is 89% on field goals and Badgley is 95% on field goals, but they pick Bates because he can kick the ball exactly where it needs to go on kickoffs. And maybe they have a little bit of a trade-off with how the but the field goal percentage, they'll take that trade-off.
Sure.
I also think that Bates can kick the long one once in a while. If we're down to 2 seconds left in the half, right before halftime, and there's a chance that, hey, it's a 67-yard field goal or nothing,
right.
A Hail Mary. That's your only two options. There's 2 seconds left. There's not enough time to run another play. You don't have a timeout. You run Jake Bates out there and give him a shot.
Yeah, I love the ability of having somebody in your back pocket like that. Shout out to Tracy this morning for the buy me a coffee donation. Thank you very much for the coffee donation this morning. If you guys would like to support the channel, there's 2 options really right now that I've built in there, but there'll be more. There's a $5 option and a $10 option. Of course, all of those options go back to the channel for the giveaways that we do. And then we also do shout outs, of you in a message, or if you want to do something as far as a show topic, include that, with your donation so that we can tell everybody what you want to talk about and highlight you as a Detroit Lions player, or Detroit Lions fan. Sorry. So next up, we're going to be talking about Aiden Hutchinson and how he talks about this year being the year. This is a little bit of a different mentality maybe from Aiden Hutchinson. He doesn't talk a whole lot. Like for being a polarizing superstar in the NFL and coming out of Michigan, he stays as far away from media as it seems like he should be. You know what I mean? Like, he's really not involved in the media. Local media, sure, but he really stays out of the limelight as much as possible. So when I saw this headline that the Lions pass rusher fuels Super Bowl hype, I had to read. What is this guy talking about? And this was by Clark Dalton. And here's what he had to say. So the Detroit Lions are entering the 2024 season with higher expectations. And the all-star edge rusher, Aiden Hutchinson, isn't shying away from them. Here's a quote. He says, and he said this to Brad Golly at WXYZ TV in Detroit. I feel like it's the year. With every fiber of my body, I feel like it's the year. Honestly, from this year on, every year is the year. With the guys that we have, I hope that we're going to sustain the success for a long time. And I agree. I mean, he's speaking truth here. The guys that are now a part of this team, and we're going to talk about some of the roster here, a little bit this morning. I'm not going to shy away from saying that we do have one of the best defensive lines on paper. On paper, right? We have to see it come to fruition this year. And that starts with training camp, that everybody makes it out of training camp healthy. But we also have to see in training camp that these guys can play. Now, I don't know if DJ Reader is going to get a ton of time in training camp. I haven't heard anything yet on how he's trending health-wise. Is he going to be able to participate? I'm hoping so. I think that is the catalyst for success this season on the defensive line. Now, DJ Reader is obviously consummate professional. He knows how to play the game at a high level. Aiden entering season 3 is no rookie anymore. He knows how to play at a high level. Combine that with Terrell Williams as a new, defensive line coach. And Aiden's exactly right. With the guys that we have here, I hope that we're able to sustain success for a long time. And I think that the Lions will be able to do that. And I think that this is the first year that they're going to lay that first brick of this foundation for the defensive line and never look back. The Lions, this article goes on to say that the Lions almost made the Super Bowl last season, but they fell to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. And Dan Campbell said, it's going to be twice as hard to get back, to this point next year. And that's not a lie. It's going to be difficult. And Dan Campbell may be right. But ESPN's Eric Woodyard, or at least per Eric Woodyard, the Lions have the 11th toughest schedule in the league in 2024, not to mention the NFC North rival Green Bay, how they should vie for a divisional title if quarterback Jordan Love builds off of a season in which he finished second in the league in touchdown passes. Yeah, I'm not buying Jordan Love. I'm not worried about Jordan Love just yet. However, this article goes on to say that Detroit kept its core intact, signing quarterback Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Penei Sewell to contract extensions. That was big. Next year, we're going to see a few more. And Hutchinson could be in store for another monster season after making his first Pro Bowl in 2023. In his edge defending rankings, Pro Football Focus, Trevor Sikkema, good old Trevor, rated the 23-year-old as number 6 in the league. I'm not sure that I would agree with number 6. I mean, I think his stats alone will put him there. But if I were to look at the top 10 defensive, pass rushers in the league, I think it would be hard to put Aiden at number 6 right now, just because there's some guys that they get home. And they get home with a high win, probability. I think he's close, and I think that this is going to be the best season Aiden has yet. I don't think there's any regression. As long as he stays healthy, I think that this is going to be the best season in Aiden's career thus far. So another quote by Sikkema said that Hutchinson ascended to an elite level in his second season, earning a 91.4 pass rush grade. His 101 quarterback pressures in the regular season ranked second to only Micah Parsons. His pass rush win rate also leaped from 12.2% in 2022 to 21.3% in 2023. So that new pass rush win rate that was calculated, that puts Aiden Hutchinson now in elite level. As I've been talking about for the last 4, 5, 6 months, that was the number that had to increase. And that's what we had to see from him to realize that, okay, this guy's got it. Now, I don't know how accurate that number is. I would have to physically go and do the math for myself, but I'm going to just take their word for it that it's accurate. So with Aiden Hutchinson saying that this is the year, Eric, and that every year from now on is the year, what does that make you believe in, or how do you feel or think differently now that Aiden, of all people, has come out and said something?
Yeah. I'll say this. When is the last time a Detroit Lions player came out before the preseason and said, hey, we're going to the Super Bowl? It's never happened. We've never had players with this much confidence before. And it's quite awesome to see. It's very humbling to me, because for the last 32 years until this year, we haven't even been a playoff team, let alone a Super Bowl favorite. Vegas thinks we're pretty high up there as far as Super Bowl favorites go. And a lot of analysts are picking us to go to the Super Bowl and win it this year. It's fantastic. It's a total 180 from what we've been for the last 30 years. And Aiden Hutchinson is entering year 3. And year 3, they always talk about that being the big year for a quarterback, right? When you get your rookie quarterback and he comes out his first year and throws a bunch of interceptions, and the second year he cleans it up a little bit. And then year 3 is when it's supposed to click. That's when everything is supposed to click for an NFL player. And I believe the same thing goes for Aiden Hutchinson. If you look at him from year 1 to this year, just go back and watch his very first preseason game and then watch the very first preseason game this year. You're going to see Aiden Hutchinson doesn't even look like the same player body-wise. His body composition is different. He's put on more bulk. He's looks completely different. Looks like a different player. And he might not move like a different player, but he's got different moves. So he'll have more than just the one spin move. He'll have the reverse spin move where he goes back the other way, and where he's using his hands now instead of just the spin move. You're going to see a lot of little nuances out of Hutchinson that you didn't see the first year or two. And I really believe that he's going to have that ultimate Pro Bowl, all pro type season this year. And if he does, it's not only because of him, it's also because he's going to have some help. He's going to have DJ Reader on that line. He's going to have a healthy Aleem McNeil. He's going to have someone on the other side, whether it's Davenport, Betts, Houston, someone is going to be on that other end that might help him out. Maybe they get all the sacks and maybe Hutchinson gets a bunch of cleanup duty, but maybe Hutchinson is containing his end and not letting that quarterback run around his end and the other guy gets him from the other side. I'm happy with it either way, as long as the Lions are winning games. And I think he has a very unselfish attitude, and that's what's going to help him be a superstar in this league.
So shout out to Lions fan 76. I mean, this person gets it. Just gets it. And I failed to mention this, so I appreciate you saying this here. It says, good morning, Will and Eric. Just another thought about Boom Boom Bates. Having a kicker that is used to the new kickoff rule would be a huge advantage, considering the rule came from the UFL rules. So that's spot on assessment. You know, Bates is coming from the league where he's already been kicking in this situation. And in knowing and understanding, the UFL rules and how to place the ball already, I mean, that is a huge advantage. And I'm surprised that, I guess I'm not surprised because not all kickers are equal. But if I were an NFL team, I would have brought in a UFL kicker just for camp. Like just say, look, I'm just bringing you in as a consultant for camp just to kind of help our kicker do its thing. You know, teach us some of the things that maybe you were good at. Get your first taste of the NFL. Who knows? Maybe you latch on with somebody or maybe you put some good tape together. But I would have brought in more UFL kickers or UFL special teams coaches to help, learn all the nuances. Not saying that these coaches can't do it, because they can. Obviously, they can adjust with the best of them. But in my opinion, I think it would have been a great opportunity for a lot of teams to bring in another kicker. So that's a good point, Lions fan 76. And what else do we have in there? There was something else in here. Where did it go?
Well, the only thing about what you guys just said is the rule came from the XFL, which was not this year, but last year's XFL. Because this year the XFL and the USFL merged together, and they use the UFL rules, not the XFL rules for kickoffs.
Yeah, it's UFL though, same thing.
Yeah.
Zachary Gardner says mediocrity is finally over. Each player seems to look to hold the standard and will get them through the games that we would have lost in the years past. I agree with that too. It is definitely a different energy throughout Allen Park now. I mean, these guys, they expect to win. And we haven't had that. I mean, as a Lions fan, walking into a Sunday, morning ritual, and you're like, hey, I expect to win today. Before it's like, I'm going to put all this work in, I'm going to make all this food, I'm going to sit down and watch this game, and at halftime, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to go mow the lawn. And I haven't done that. I haven't done that in a long time. I've been at the games mostly, but haven't done that. So what else did we have in here? There was another one in here. J-Mommy says, I can think of 7 Lions that have worked out over the offseason, and Bates hadn't kicked since high school. I'm not sure what you're saying there. I probably missed something. So anyway, let's move on here. What's next up on the roster? We have linebacker room. So as far as the linebacker room, there was an NFL writer. I think she's a writer, or he's a writer, but Lorenzo Reyna from the Pro Football Network. For some reason, I thought that was a female this morning, but I guess it's not. They put up a picture of a female next to this person's name.
Jeez.
Jeez, so Pete. All right, so Lorenzo Reyna was talking about every team and what every team needs to, pay attention to heading into training camp. And according to this individual's assessment, as stacked as this is their statement, as stacked as the Detroit Lions are across the field, linebacker remains a big question mark. Rookie Jack Campbell was met with mixed results in 2023 and appeared to have difficulty adjusting right away to the speed of the NFL. Perhaps he will take leaps in 2024, but they're putting Quan Alexander as among the fastest linebackers available and can be another option for the Lions to pick up prior to training camp. Let's take a look at Quan Alexander, and I'll also tell you why I don't believe that's a good choice at this point. So do you see any deficiencies right away on the Lions linebacker room? I know that Coach B was saying that the linebacking room is obviously weak, missing some players. I don't agree. I don't agree. So what do you think about the linebacker room right now? And do you feel like the Lions should add another body to this room?
I don't. The linebacking crew that we have right now is pretty darn solid. Listen, you have Rodrigo as a backup. You have Derek Barnes, who does a pretty good job cleaning up. You have Alex Anzalone, starter. You have Jack Campbell, starter. And this kid in year 2, watch out is all I can say. On defense, I think he takes the biggest leap of any of our year 2 players. Of any of our defensive players, I think Jack is going to have the biggest leap. It's going to click this year. And he's even said that he hasn't taken a day off since the end of the season. He has been putting his nose in the playbook, working out every day, working on being a better linebacker. And I think that's the 4 or 5 linebackers that we're going to keep. I just don't think we have room for another one.
So when I look at the roster right now, the Lions have 9 linebackers on the roster. And it's funny because it does not include Metu Betts. Now, Metu Betts has been often referred to as an outside linebacker because of his size, not so much an edge rusher or a pass rusher. And he's kind of in that tweener type role, right? And then you've also got James Houston, who's kind of in that role as well, but he's also been kind of utilized or promoted as an edge rusher when really he's an outside linebacker. So we have positional flex, I guess, to use Terrell Williams' words, and we have quite a few players that embody that role. So it's kind of hard to really lock these guys into an exact role and what they're going to do. And shout out Scott DeHaan, I think that's your name. Yep. Lions fan 76 for the coffee donation this morning. Appreciate you. And definitely appreciate your communication this morning too, man. And great way to back up the show by bringing good, relevant information to light, just like everybody else does. You guys all do a great job. And that's our goal with this too, by the way, is we really want to highlight the fans and what you guys want to talk about and what you guys want, aired and the discussions that we're going to have. So part of the show that's going to be changing soon is we're going to start taking calls again quickly to kind of get this radio style of show amped up for the last half hour of the show or the middle half hour. We're going to do something here soon. I've got a new cord on the way. I don't know why it hasn't arrived yet. But anyway, back to the roster here. So we have 9 guys listed on the Detroit Lions website right now as linebackers. You got Mitchell Agudi, 6'4", 245, rookie. You got Alex Anzalone, 6'3", 238, 8 years of NFL experience. You have Derek Barnes, 6 foot, 240, 4 years of experience. Of course, Jack Campbell, 6'5", 243, one of the bigger linebackers in the NFL, entering his sophomore season. You have Deron Gilbert, linebacker, 6'1", 218. So he's definitely on the smaller side, rookie. And let me back up. Mitchell Aguti's actually got a full season underneath his belt, I guess. He's not a rookie. James Houston, entering his third season, 6'1", 245. He's kind of right in that sweet spot for an outside linebacker. I would, of course, love to see these guys, a little taller than 6'1". And then Ben Nyman. Ben Nyman is someone the Lions just brought in, another Iowa product, 7 years of experience, 6'2", 235. And then you've got Jalen Reeves-Maben, who was just extended this offseason, 6'1", 226, 8 years of experience. And then Malcolm Rodriguez, 5'11", 234, the smallest linebacker in the room, entering his third season. So you have 9 guys. And when you look at the outside linebackers, right, you've got the outside linebacker, quote unquote, edge rusher. They actually have Marcus Davenport listed as an outside linebacker. They have Nate Lynn listed as a linebacker. Isaac Ukwu listed as a linebacker, outside linebacker. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why. It's on the Lions website, so it's what they're calling these guys. But then when you look at the defensive line, you've got these guys that are tweeners. So you got Mathieu Betts, 6'2", 259. He would be a big linebacker, but he's got the speed and the edge rush capability, but he's kind of in between what, an edge rusher should be based on his skill set, and his coverage ability kind of lacks to be a linebacker. I think that's probably why he's more fit into the edge rusher role, but he's listed as, defensive line. John Kaminsky obviously is an edge rusher. He's kind of the in-betweener as far as edge rush and interior defensive line. I don't think that Josh Paschal's any secret. He's also edge rush, interior defensive line. So the rest of the guys that, are on the defensive line, I think that they belong there. I don't think that we have any other guys that can really come backwards and play linebacker. Mekhi Wingo, 6 foot, 291, clearly edge rusher, interior defensive line. And I say edge rusher because he does possess some skills where he can be used on the outside. That's not a primary position. So with 9 guys, I think that Mathieu Betts is the only other guy that could potentially fit here. So how are you going to trim down 10 slots? Well, we'll just stick it with 9. Why would we add another guy to this roster? So where would Quan Alexander end up? Whose position would he take? He was selected in the 4th round of 2015, so he has a lot of experience, about 8 or 9 seasons of experience. He's 6'1", 227. He runs a 4.55 40, which is great. He's got good lateral ability and agility. He can get sideline to sideline. But when I look at his overall production last season, there's one reason why he doesn't fit. His run defense grade was atrocious, 30.3. You are not making this team unless you can protect against the run. So I think for that reason alone, Quan Alexander is not a good fit for the Detroit Lions. Where he is a good fit is in coverage. He's great at the pass rush, and he's good in coverage. But he doesn't fit, as far as a run defender. So, again, you're adding another guy to a team that is not able to play 3 downs. He's someone that's going to come in as a super specialist, or passing downs, and he'll get eaten up alive in the run game. And maybe DJ Reader helps with that. And maybe Marcus Davenport helps with that this year, where the linebackers aren't going to be, heavily relied upon to stop the run, but they also have to be relied upon to stop the run, if it comes to them. And Quan Alexander has not been that guy in the run game. He's great in pass coverage. He's a good pass rusher. But for those reasons, I just don't think that he's enough to add to this team. I think that we have plenty of guys. It's going to be hard enough to trim. So if I'm going to take a pot shot guess at our linebacker room, it's Alex Anzalone, it's Derek Barnes, it's Jack Campbell. And then it's James Houston, Ben Nyman, Jalen Reeves-Maben. That's 6 guys. Malcolm Rodriguez right now is the odd man out. So who are you going to replace? Who are you going to replace Malcolm Rodriguez for out of those guys? Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, Jack Campbell, that's 3. James Houston, Ben Nyman, Jalen Reeves-Maben, that's 6. Malcolm Rodriguez is 7. It's going to be extremely hard for the Lions to get down to 6 players. And quite honestly, they might only keep 5 like they have in seasons past. So now with that information, what do you think is our post training camp linebacker room going to look like?
Yeah, it could very well be that we have to cut a player like Rodrigo. And what's going to happen is we're going to lose somebody that is going to go on and be a starter for another team.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to happen all over. It's not going to happen just in the linebacker room. I honestly believe, like I saw a report the other day, that if you took all the Detroit Lions backups for the offensive line, they would be a starting unit on half the teams in the NFL. That's how good our depth is on this team. It is getting very, very, very good at depth. And that's the part that's really helping the Lions. So when someone goes down and it's next man up, it really is next man up. And these linebackers, I'm telling you, I think they only keep 5 myself. And it is going to be somebody like Rodrigo, or I don't know. I don't want to put my finger on it until we figure out our own 53-man rosters. But I'm a really big Rodrigo fan. I hope he sticks around. But if he doesn't make the cut, he doesn't make the cut. That's the good and the bad. So it's a good thing that our talent is so good that we have to cut a player like Rodrigo, but it's bad that we have to cut a player like Rodrigo. It sucks. You know, he's a fan favorite, and somebody we saw Brad Holmes take in the draft. He's one of our own players. He's a drafted player. He's not a bought player. So it really sucks to see somebody like that go. But you know what? That's what good teams do.
Yeah, that's the hard reality in the NFL is, you come to this time of the season, you're getting through the 53-man cuts after training camp, and you have to look at a guy in the face and say, man, you do everything right. Not only do you do everything right, but man, you play at a great level. You've done everything for us, but unfortunately, we have to let you go. That sucks. Like, it sucks because now we're at this position where you've got really great players. And to your point, they're going to move on. And not only are they probably going to be starters for another team, but they might end up being extremely impactful players in the NFL. And I think Malcolm Rodriguez is I can't say that the Lions would move off of him over Ben Nyman. But if I were to do a stat comparison right now, you have to go back to 2022 to really get a good idea of what Ben Nyman is all about, because last season he didn't play. He didn't play, I think, at all. He had one run defense snap. So I'm not sure what happened last year with Ben, if he was injured. Maybe he was injured. I don't remember at this point. But if you go back to 2022, he had 249 coverage snaps, 195 run defense snaps. So in total, he played, right around 550, 600 snaps all season. His passer rating allowed was 88.2, so that's pretty darn good over the middle of the defense. Malcolm Rodriguez only got in 100 snaps last year on defense. So he went from a guy that was starting in 2021 to barely playing in 2023. And I think for that reason, a guy like Ben Nyman might be able to swoop in and take his position because he played 10 times the amount of snaps, that he did in 2022. And I think the Lions are looking at an opportunity here to say, okay, we're expecting to get Marcus Davenport of old back in 2024. Same for Ben Nyman. We're trying to get, Ben Nyman from 2022 back in 2024. And if that happens, a guy like Malcolm Rodriguez is not going to make the team. So if I dig a little bit deeper here, Ben Nyman in 2022 was rated 71 overall. Run defense grade 67.6. Pass rush was his bottom end, 58.2. Coverage solid at a 70.2. And Malcolm just didn't stack up. So let's look at Malcolm's season in 2022. Ben still has the edge here. Now, they had similar snap counts, but Ben Nyman played better, and Malcolm Rodriguez led up a lot more passes than Ben Nyman did. He had 28 stops, 1 sack, 9 missed tackles to Ben Nyman's 19 stops, no sacks, and only 1 missed tackle. It's going to be a dogfight. These guys are going to be dogging it out in camp, and it's going to be a fun battle to watch. But I guess the whole point of this conversation is, do we need to add another player to the linebacker room before camp? I would say no. It doesn't mean that it won't happen after cuts. It doesn't mean that it won't happen during camp. But I think that this linebacker room is already full. It's over full. And it's going to be really tough to get it down to a manageable squad, if you will. Any final thoughts here on the linebacker room?
What's wrong with it being a bloodbath? It's
Right.
going to be fun. This is going to be fun to watch and see who does make it, who doesn't make it. And man, maybe we can have Rodrigo go to another team that I can cheer for him on the other team, maybe an AFC team or something. But there was one thing in the chat. Roger Chappis said that the fact that we have such depth everywhere is why I was asking about a mock 53-man roster, seeing it in July. So I'll tell you what, Roger, I will do a little bit of homework today and tomorrow, and I'll put together a 53-man, and maybe we can do that on Friday.
Yeah, I think Friday would be a good opportunity for that. We typically will do a look back at a Lions legend, and we'll get through that as quickly as we can because those can be kind of boring. But I would like to do that on Friday. So, Roger, I don't know if you're on vacation or whatever, but we'll do it on Friday morning. We're going to do the 53-man mock roster before training camp and just see where it ends up after training camp and see if we can even get close. I think that more positions on this team are probably spelled out, but man, there's some battles in here that are going to be interesting. And in talking to positional battles, let's get to the last topic here, positional battles. I mean, it is what it is, right? Colton Pouncey put out an article here talking about the Lions positional battles, the third options, the secondary, and more competitions to really watch during training camp. And here's what he had to say. He said the Detroit Lions roster has come a long way since 2021, the start of everything under this regime. Last season was the breakthrough with 5 Pro Bowlers, a strong collection of young talent, and a core that reached the NFC Championship. The majority of that group is set to return for another run in 2024. That's a testament right there to Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, AG, all of them. The fact that all of these players wanted to come back, the players that the Lions wanted to keep, is a testament to how well, not only do they coach, but how well they get along and how close, knit this team really is to each other. He goes on to say, but even with all of that going for them, it's not a roster without questions. Many of them will be answered in training camp when the pads come on and there's money to be made. But based on the offseason moves and the spring workouts, we have a pretty good idea of the key positional battles and the top contenders duking it out. First up, wide receiver 3. And we'll do more of, like I said, on Friday, we'll do the actual 53, but wide receiver 3. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams should lock up the 1-2 punch here for Detroit. The battle for wide receiver 3 should play out in training camp. There are a few in-house options that could be ready for an increased workload. And I like that he highlighted Antoine Green here. I was really high on Antoine Green last year. I thought that it was a great pick, later in the 7th round, and in somebody that we knew was not going to get a ton of time last year. But where he's coming from and the type of career that he had even in college, there was a lot more to Antoine Green that is yet to be realized. And I do believe that he's going to take a step forward this year. Is that wide receiver 3? Maybe, maybe not. But Antoine Green, a 2023 7th round pick, spent quite a bit of time with the first team offense this spring. The Lions liked how he developed last year. Even if consistent targets weren't coming his way, Dan Campbell spoke highly of Antoine Green during minicamp, where he had this to say. He said, I would say AG, Antoine Green, was another guy that by the end of the year, we felt improvement. There was a noticeable difference from the time he walked in here to the end of the season. Just what he was doing on the scout teams for us. He played a little bit at the end of the year, but those targets were going other places. But we saw significant growth. We saw speed. We saw speed on the releases. He's a smart football player. He knew the offense. Really having high hopes. Came in early this camp. This is phenomenal from Dan Campbell. I don't think that this is just coach speak here. I think that this has been who Antoine Green is. He's an intelligent football player. Even last year, Antoine Randall would speak to Green's ability that when he actually played at full speed, he's a hard receiver to stop. They just need him to play at full speed. And the problem with that was he was having some limitations early with the playbook and understanding the concepts of the offense. Therefore, he wasn't playing at full speed. So when you can play with your hair down, right, and you can play free, and you know what you're doing inside of an offense or a defense, that's when you really start to see the lights click and the player becomes the player you expected them to become. And that could be this year for Antoine Green. Am I saying that he's going to go in and get, 1,000 yards and 80 balls? No. But if he can somehow get, 540 and a couple of TDs and be used as a downfield threat at times, great. We need that fourth, fifth, guy on this team that can be reliable, someone that can work into that Josh Reynolds role, which is, I think, going to be different than what Jameson Williams is really going to do. We still need that big boundary guy. And then you've got Donovan Peoples-Jones. But before I get into DPJ, any thoughts on Antoine Green? And don't give away everything, obviously, for Friday, but any thoughts on Antoine Green?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big battle between him and DPJ for that third receiver spot. I think Khalif Raymond's kind of locked into that fourth spot because he does so much with special teams, kick returns, punt returns. And so I think he's a lock at number 4. But that number 3 spot is going to be very, very intriguing. And as of right now, I don't have a clue which one would win. I really don't. DPJ has the experience, but they're both similar in size. They're both similar in speed. Just depends on who can catch the ball and go up and get those contested catches.
So Green is, he's full of talent. He was, who was that quarterback? Drake May. So he was Drake May's number 1 outlet, number 1 outlet in 2022. And watching, some of the tape on Antoine Green, you really see flashes of a guy that can be explosive. And I'm just hoping that he gets an opportunity this year to really show or accentuate what he's really good at and have an opportunity to show it. Camp is going to be that defining moment, I think, where he's going to have to step up and step into a role. This is a great opportunity for a lot of these guys in the wide receiver room. Great opportunity because just losing one guy in Josh Reynolds, who has been that staple for Jared Goff, that Mr. Consistent, the guy that he could rely on no matter what, that's really big shoes to fill. And I think you're going to have, 3 guys or so that are kind of battling for this one position. I do like your take on Khalif Raymond, even though he's, pretty gutsy guy, speed guy. He just doesn't have the size to compete, with some of these guys. So he's an ultra specialist type of wide receiver, but you can't sleep on Leaf, man. This guy is as tough as they come, and you get him open in space, there's not many people that can bring him down. And we've seen some of that last year in the limited time that he was in, when he wasn't battling an injury. So in addition to Green, you have DPJ, which I'm extremely excited about DPJ this year, just like I was last year. If you go back to one of my old videos on DPJ when the Lions brought him in, it's probably around October-ish of last year is where the video is, somewhere on YouTube. I highlighted a lot of his play and did a breakdown, if you will, of some of his best catches from 2022. And what you'll see in there is somebody that gets it at a high level from contested catches. He's a boundary receiver. He's somebody that can, body the best of them, box out. He puts his body in the right position to win. And I think that now that he has this continuity with Jared Goff and they've built a relationship, you're going to see a different side to DPJ this year as long as he can make the team. I don't think that should be an issue. But again, this battle in camp is going to be everything for these guys. I can't imagine the Lions not having DPJ on the squad this year, but I will say his ceiling is still pretty high. Even though he's been in the league for a little bit, his ceiling is still pretty high. He just needs to click with Jared, and I think that sky's the limit for DPJ. I mean, DPJ could legit be, a solid number 2 on a lot of teams as long as he has a good relationship with the quarterback and they understand what each other is doing. But Colton goes on to say this, that after trading for DPJ at the deadline last year, the Lions after trading for him at the deadline, the Lions re-signed Peoples-Jones this offseason. He has the athletic profile and body type of an ex-receiver and also has an 800-yard season under his belt in the NFL. I believe that was 2022. He split first-team reps at the number 3 spot with Green this spring. And while he's probably better in a reserve role, Khalif Raymond has been a productive player when called upon and could see more targets this season. One thing worth noting is that the Lions still have some cap space at their disposal. I mean, they have quite a bit, honestly. If a notable receiver is on the verge of being cut in training camp, the Lions could have resources to make a move or outbid another team. There's an opportunity with Josh Reynolds off to Denver, so who's going to seize it? And here's a quote by offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. Something we've talked about with this skill group, those opportunities go elsewhere now, and we need guys to step up and rise to the occasion just like he did. And you're talking about Josh Reynolds. It might be someone who didn't have as much production last year, say an Antoine Green or a Peoples-Jones, or some of the guys we had on the scout team. That could be it. Or it could be some of the other guys. That's what we're trying to figure out this springtime and in training camp. It's not just who the guys are we'll hang on, or it's not just who the guys are that we'll hang our hats on, but also how we distribute those carries and targets as the season goes. I think it's a great point by Ben. Even though if you had 3 all-star wide receivers, not everybody's going to be able to get the ball. So it's highly dependent upon where all of the, targets are ending up for these guys. But at the end of the day, I do believe that Peoples-Jones will have a big opportunity this training camp. It's going to be between him and Antoine Green and quite honestly, Jameson Williams. I think that you're going to have a 3-way battle there for 2 positions. I'm not settling on Jameson as number 2. As much as I want to see him as the number 2, I still think that he has to earn it. I think that he's going to get more opportunity for sure. But he's going to have to show that in training camp, he's ready to work and he's ready to really take on a bigger role on this team and not just be a guy that's just counted on once in a while. He has to be consistent. And whoever is playing at a more consistent rate in training camp is going to win that job. So with all that said, any final thoughts on the positional battles here for the wide receiver room?
It's going to be fun. Just like the linebacking crew, it's going to be a bloodbath, especially with the wide receivers. The wide receivers is going to be a tough one. Do we keep 5? Do we keep 6? Do we keep 7? Going to have to look back and see what they did the last couple of years. But I think it's going to be a little thinner this year. And I also saw a report, I can't remember where it was, but they were saying that an agent for a player contacted the Lions about a wide receiver that they're the person for, and they're the agent for this wide receiver, and the Lions said, nope, we're fine at wide receiver, we don't need one. So that's very interesting that the Lions, if it's real, if it's not a fake deal, but it's really eye-opening if the Lions really said, hey, we don't need a wide receiver right now, we're good with what we got. So that's that's going to make for one heck of a really fun battle in training camp. And I can't wait to see what these guys do in the preseason games, because we only get 3 preseason games now. We don't get 4 anymore. We only get 3. And some of these guys, we only get to see them a little bit because when they go to the preseason and we play the Giants, we're doing the joint practices with them. So a lot of the starters, you're not even going to see them in the preseason games at all. So I doubt you get to see Hutch. I doubt you get to see Jared Goff or any of the big time starters. You know, you might get to see a few of the linemen play for a series or something, but that's about it.
Maybe I think there's some people that are a little bit behind on the show, and they're having some video with audio or something. But I'll trim it. I'll trim the beginning out when I can do it. But so the Lions currently have 12 wide receivers on the roster. 12. And you had said something about, you know, how many they kept. So if memory serves me right, they kept 6 last year because of Jameson Williams' suspension. And the year before that, they kept 5 coming out of training camp. So at post 53-man cuts, they kept 6 and they kept 5. Obviously, last year there was really 7 because Jameson Williams is on the exempt list. But they kept 6 out of training camp, 5 in 2022. This year, I think they're back to 6. That's where I'm resting my hat. I don't see any other way around it, unless something really happens in training camp where, man, we've got 5 extremely good guys, and they're confident with those 5 guys. That's the only way they're going to keep 5. But I really think that 6 is the answer for any season, because that way you can bury one, you know, later and hopefully get a couple of guys back on the practice squad. But run down the list. You got Maurice Alexander, John Calhoun, Caden Davis, Darius Fountain, Antoine Green, Tom Kennedy, again, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Khalif Raymond, Traquan Smith, who we don't talk enough about this guy, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Isaiah Williams, and Jameson Williams. So if I were to take a crack shot at this right away, here's what I would say. Jamo's in, Amon-Ra's in, DPJ's in, Antoine Green's in. That's 4. And you're going to have to tune in on Friday to hear the rest. Defensive end. So more positional battles. I don't think that this is a secret. I also don't think that there's a ton of drama with this position. It's worth noting that the battle could be between Josh Paschal and Marcus Davenport. I'm hoping and I'm expecting that Marcus Davenport wins this battle. That's the hope. If he's not better than Josh Paschal in training camp, we've got a problem. I just don't think that's going to be an issue. I think that, you know, with Paschal entering his 3rd season, he really hasn't proven anything. He's battled a ton of injury. He hasn't been much of a threat in the pass game or the run game. He's got 10 pressures his entire career, 5.8% win rate last season. He ranked 75th among 78 edge rushers with at least 250 pass rush snaps. Holmes still believes in the power of the 3rd-year breakout. So that's where Holmes rests his hat. And you heard him say that this year. Don't judge my players until year 3. He just said that in like the opening off season. You remember the opening off season press conference where he pretty much called out the media and said, you remember when you said this, and you remember when you said that, and you remember when you said this? Well, guess what? All those players turned out. So he clearly said, don't judge my players until year 3 because we have a plan for them. Well, it's year 3. Paschal needs to get off the schneid because he hasn't done anything. He hasn't been reliable. Much like Levi Onwuzurike has not been reliable. We'll see what happens here, but if Davenport is healthy, will he be the difference maker that we're looking for? I would say yes. I think it is a bigger step up than what people are expecting. I think that Marcus Davenport got a lot of early hate this offseason when he was taken by the Lions or selected by the Lions in free agency. And I guess, you know, some of it is probably warranted. He didn't play a whole lot last year. But, man, if we can get him back to 2020 2022 or 2021's performance, Marcus Davenport is going to be the best right side defensive end we've ever had on this team in quite a long time, as long as we can get him back to that performance level. And that's what I'm expecting, is that he's going to stay healthy, that he's in a scheme that he knows, and he's got familiar faces around him that he trusts. And when you start to combine those things, and it was 2021, but when you start to combine those things start to work. So 2021, he had 9 sacks, an 18.3% win rate in 11 games. So if you're more optimistic about Marcus Davenport, look, he can be a double-digit guy in the sacks. He absolutely could. Not saying he's going to, but 9 sacks in 11 games, do the math. It's almost a sack a game. It's like 0.9 sacks per game. So you're talking about a 13, 14 sack season in a full season if he's able to play, if he can get back to that level of play that he had in 2021. But he's still a prove it guy. He's got to prove, to the Detroit Lions and the rest of the team that he can do it. Any developments for you or words before Friday on the defensive end position? Marcus Davenport, Josh Paschal, Matthew Betts. Who else do we have over there? We have... where's it at? Come on. Matthew Betts, Marcus Davenport, John Kaminsky, Josh Paschal, Mekhi Wingo. I think that those are all the guys that are kind of fighting over there on the right side of the defense. Obviously, Mekhi Wingo is defensive line man. He's not really edge. But I think that between those 4 guys, that's your battle on the right side. Josh Paschal, John Kaminsky, Matthew Betts, Marcus Davenport. Anything you want to add to those guys?
The whole Betts and Davenport is going to be really fun to watch.
James Houston too. Sorry.
Yeah, and James Houston. But the 2 that I really want to see, I've seen what James Houston can do. We've seen it. Year 1, those last 7 games, he had 8 sacks and really turned it on. So we know he can do it. What I haven't seen is what Davenport can do. I know he was a first-round pick, I think, for the Saints, and he had a good year or 2 there. Then he gets hurt. He goes to the Minnesota Vikings and does basically nothing for them, and then comes here. So is he fully healthy? Does he have his head on straight? Is he in a scheme that works for him, which I think he does now? It's exciting. We have a first-round pick on both ends. That could
It's crazy.
really be a really good thing. Not too many teams have that, And then you add in DJ Reader in there and Lee McNeil, and our line could be absolutely amazing. So I see kind of why some people have it ranked as high as they do, but it's all on potential right now. We have to see what they can actually do, and it's really going to be exciting. I can't wait to see Betts, because I'm saying don't sleep on Betts. Paul was saying that don't sleep on Betts, and he didn't even coach Betts, and that's the one that I'm really, really going to keep my eye on, is that 1.5 yard difference from the CFL to the NFL. Is that going to be something that's good for him or something that's a hindrance? I kind of think it's going to be a good thing, because he is going to get off the line super quick, and people are going to have a problem with this kid. It's going to be super fun to watch in the preseason, and I hope that Davenport, I hope we get to see him a little bit in the preseason. We might not get to see him at all because he's a starter. And Betts, I really hope we get to see a ton of him, and I think we're going to see a ton of him, because he's a prove-it kid. This is a prove-it deal. Come in and let's see what you got. And Betts, he was in camp with, I want to say, the Bears last year or the year before.
2019.
Yeah, and then went back to the CFL. So he's had his one shot at the NFL, and most people don't get that second shot. Most people don't get to go to another league and give that league a try for a while and then come back. So this kid could really turn it on, or he could just fizzle out. We're going to have to wait for camp to see, but I'm very excited to watch. And I think the preseason is going to be very, very fun this year. It's going to be different than most years. We're going to get to see a lot of these players that are maybe not the core.
Fringe players.
Yeah, the core players really aren't. I doubt we see any of them in, like, I don't think you're going to see Goff take a single snap in the preseason. In a single preseason game, you will not see him out there.
Yeah, so I guess where I'm going with this too is, like you're saying, it's going to be different. It's going to be fun. I think what you're trying to say is you're going to have rotation, and J Mommy kind of said the same thing. Bo Booth said the same thing. Tracy said the same thing, that rotation is big. And I think that the one thing that you can definitely bet on in the NFL is you're only as good as your depth. If your depth is not up to par, right? If you've got guys that are, bottom feeders in the league backing up your starters, that's when the opposing team eats. They wait for you to take a break. And the minute those guys roll out, and the new guys roll in, they go up tempo, they stick them on the field, they don't, you know what I mean? They kind of go into a hurry up style of an offense. And at that point, you're kind of stuck with the guys that are in, especially in the NFL. You can't rotate guys back in unless there's a timeout or unless the offense, brings someone in off the sideline, then the defense can come back in, with a new player. So rotation is big. You're only as good as your depth. And for that reason, the Lions are looking pretty good right now with some of these positional battles that really sparking a big interest into, who's going to make the team, number one. But number two, just how good are we going to be on all four downs when the guys that we're bringing in off the bench could be just as good or maybe just slightly behind some of our starters? Like, that's a huge problem to have. Like, bring in DJ Reader on down one, take him out on down two, put him back in on down three. You give him a blow for a play, maybe he'll play a little bit better. Maybe you bring him in for the first 2 downs or the second 2 downs, and you give him, a play off on down one. But there's a lot of different ways to rotate these guys. And I think that when you have different phases rolling in and rolling out, and you're kind of doing different things on defense, that's when offenses really can't figure you out. If you're, playing in a multiple type of a scheme format and you're putting a lot of different combinations, up there for the offense to try to figure out, that's how you win games, man. You got to keep the offense guessing. But if you go in and do the same thing down in and down out, and it gets, so predictable, you're going to lose. And you're going to lose a lot, and they're going to score a lot of points on you. And I don't think that that's AG's style at all. I think that he does get predictable at times, and I'm hoping he doesn't do that this year. And I think that was a product of, who we had in the cornerback room last year, the DB room overall. But I think that we're a little bit too vanilla at times. So anyway, a couple of highlights here. J Mommy says the Lions will be rolling their line. That's how they play. Keeps them fresh and does wear out the offensive line. Mike P says, I don't know who you're talking about. Might have been Houston, saying that he has trouble getting healthy, but, when Houston was healthy, I think he had, the 8 sacks or whatever in the 7 games. Rick says, I want the best man to win the job. I root for the team, not the name on the back of the players' jerseys. All right. That's a good way to look at it. Bo Booth says rotation, rotation, rotation. Tracy says rotational players are going to be a big factor on defense, keeping the legs fresh. Tracy also asks, when does training camp start? So July 20th, the rookies show up, and 23rd is when the vets start to report. Obviously, this year, I think that the season ticket holder event is the 28th, I think. And then they open up practice the next week for all the rest of the fans. You can start to get tickets on the 16th this year for regular training camp, and then the season ticket holder event, I believe, opens up here in just a couple of days on the 9th. Mega Ant says, are we going to see the rookie cornerback on the preseason? I don't know. It's a good point. Here's what I would tell you. And kind of what Eric was saying just a little bit ago. If we don't see Terrion Arnold in preseason, what does that tell you? He's a starter.
Yep.
So if we don't see him in preseason, you've already got your answer that he's going to be a starter on week 1. If we do see him in preseason, it could be at a limited opportunity for them to kind of get a feel and allow him to get a feel of the NFL speed. Now, he's going to be going up against second and third tier guys. So it's just like playing, the best college team that they went up against. It would be a great opportunity for him. I think that it's warranted to do. But if we don't see him, I wouldn't be surprised, and that means that he's going to be a starter. So next up, tight end 3, James Mitchell. This was another comment by Roger Chappis in an email. So Mailbag is open, by the way, and I don't have it up on the screen today. But if you guys would like to send in Mailbag questions, comments about the show, things that you would like to talk about, or have us research and talk about, send it to mailbag@rockedon.com. Again, that's mailbag@rockedon.com. I just put it in the chat. Pretty simple. That email should be open by tomorrow. So if you send something today, it might get kicked back. Should be open by tomorrow. But mailbag@rockedon.com is where you guys can reach out to us. You can forget the info at Rocked On Podcast Network. Just don't use that one anymore. Use mailbag@rockedon.com. It is also the same email that you're going to be able to use for all of the shows. So in the subject line, just put in what show, Rise and Grind, Off the Cuff, All Grit Pod, whatever you would like to, have that comment or idea be a part of whatever show, just let us know. So tight end 3, this is starting to feel like a make or break year for James Mitchell, in my opinion. He hasn't done anything. He's been injured last year, hasn't had a whole lot of time on the field. Matter of fact, let me pull up his stats real quick. And I know we're not trying to give away too much before Friday. This is kind of a pre-look to the 53-man prediction. But if I go back and look at James Mitchell in 2022, I mean, what did he do? He had 11 targets, 11 receptions. That's good. So he caught every ball thrown his way. He had 113 yards, 1 touchdown. He got in how many snaps? It doesn't even tell me how many snaps he got in. I don't know why, but it wasn't many. It wasn't many, but his overall grade was a 66.9 in 2022. And then in 2023, he had 2 targets, 2 receptions, 28 yards. Here's the thing that I like about James Mitchell. The guy catches everything that is thrown his way that is a catchable ball. Now, he did have that one 2-point conversion, I think, in the NFC Championship game. Was that the game where the 2-point conversion was thrown at him the second time? And it was nowhere close to him, so I don't think you can count that as a drop or a missed target. But last year, he did nothing. Now, a large reason was because Sam Laporta was so good. But now you have Brock Wright back. You have Shane Zielstra back. James Mitchell, what was he, a 5th-round draft pick in 2021? Or was that 2022? I think it was 2022.
He was 21.
Was he 21?
Yeah.
No, I thought it was 22. He was 5th round in 22.
This is his 3rd season, right?
This will be his 3rd season.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 22. So he just hasn't done anything. Now, we have Sam Laporta on the team, which is a problem for James Mitchell because, James battled back through an ACL to enter the league. Got a little bit of playing time towards the, latter half of the season. And then at 23, just wasn't available, wasn't in the game, not a big part of the plan. So where does James Mitchell fit? I really don't know. I don't know if he's even going to make the team this year. I guess according to Colton Pouncey, he's been nothing more than tight end 3 for the Lions since he's arrived. And as a 5th rounder, you can kind of deal with that, especially considering there's an all-pro in Sam Laporta now. and a trusted presence like Brock Wright in front of him. But there is some pressure mounting. Shane Zielstra, injured all of last season, looked very good in OTAs. And mind you, Laporta, Brock Wright, and Shane Zielstra all attended tight end university together. James Mitchell did not, which I don't understand. And Campbell said that he picked up where he left off talking about Shane Zielstra before the injury and when he was repping over Mitchell at the end of 2022. So Colt Pouncey says he would not be surprised if Zielstra beats out Mitchell. So he's got some work to do. It's going to be an interesting dogfight there between, the last spot on this roster. I do not think that the Lions are going to keep more than 4, and I would really, that would be a stretch. That would be a big stretch. I think that they'll keep 3 tight ends this year and then try to stash one on the practice squad. Anything you want to say about James Mitchell? I mean, clearly he hasn't done anything. He's not been as good as what was advertised when he was coming out of Tennessee.
No, he was a 5th-round pick. He came in with a bum ACL, started out on the PUP list, and just really hasn't done much since. He's had a couple games with a couple good catches, but that's it. Just a very, very small flashes. And to me, it is so disappointing that he hasn't done everything possible to become the best tight end he can be, and that's going to tight end you with all of his buddies. Why did every other tight end on the Lions go and he didn't? To me, that just, it burns my biscuit. It really does.
Burns your biscuit.
Yeah, my biscuit's burnt. If you have this opportunity to make an NFL team, you were a 5th-round pick. Not you're not some UDFA or something. The team really thinks you're going to be something someday, and they picked you because you had this ACL injury, and they knew it was going to take a year or 2 to get you seasoned, and you're not doing anything to further yourself. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Maybe he's got some special tight end guru he's working with. But when the rest of your teammates all go do something like tight end university, why wouldn't you go? Why? I just don't get it. It's mind blowing.
And I guess to shout out to Chef here, he's wondering if you have to be invited to tight end university. I'm not so sure that you do.
No.
I'm not sure. So
all tight ends in the NFL.
This was started back in 2021 by George Kittle, Travis Kelce, and Greg Olson. Yep. Tight End University was created to kind of bring the tight end community together in what is like an immersive 3-day event where they're doing all sorts of things. Over the course of what they consider the summit, attendees are able to bond, collaborate, and learn amongst their peers while participating in a variety of activities, including film study, on-field drills, recovery, rehabilitation, and more. In addition to current players, Tight End University will also feature several retired legends who provide attendees with the invaluable opportunity to learn from some of the best to ever play the game. Tight End University is driven to give back to the community through a variety of charitable initiatives. Thanks to their sponsors. Obviously, they've done a great job, for the last few seasons that they've done this. But I'm not sure that you have to be invited. I think that it involves every tight end that wants to be there. Could be wrong. But there's a sign-up sheet on Tight End University. And you obviously have to have a password from Tight End University to be able to get that. So I'm not sure. I'm not real sure. That's an interesting topic, because if I had an opportunity as a tight end to go work with Greg Olson and George Kittle and Travis Kelce and all the other legends that are going to be there, you better believe I would be there. I would take every opportunity to be there. Positional battle in the secondary. I don't think that we need to touch on this one a whole lot. This one is going to be the best battle in camp, in my opinion. I mean, wide receiver's fun, But this cornerback room, this whole DB room, man, this is going to be, I mean, this is what legends, seasoned legends are made of right here. This is it. Like this room is going to be a room that many remember. And I think that this is going to be an incredible breakout season for the Lions DB room overall. I really think that they finally did it. They finally put together an amazing cast of characters, high-end players, intelligent players. I mean, guys that just exude confidence, cockiness, whatever. They get it. They, some of them have the it factor. Some of them have been playing in the league for a few years now. Carlton Davis, man, he wants to lock it down. He's telling you he's going to lock it down. Terrion Arnold, probably the most confident kid I've ever seen walk into an NFL room. Extremely confident. And that's great to have because he's going to get burned soon. And when that happens, he's going to have to bounce back. So I want to see how he bounces back. How many times is he going to be able to get up? I don't think that's going to be a problem for him. But just watching the way that his swagger is at an all-time high, I think it's a great attitude to have walking into your first training camp, where I'm sure he's going to be a little bit nervous. And I guarantee you that Jared Goff is not going to be throwing any gimme interceptions his way in training camp. He's going to try to burn him. And Jameson Williams is going to try to burn him. So I think it's going to be a good battle, not only as a collective for the DB room, but I also believe these wide receivers going up against this DB room, man, I think that's going to help us overall get better week in and week out. It's tough for Amon-Ra St. Brown to get better, but look, there's still things he can work on too. I mean, he believes that. He knows that. One of the best wide receivers in the league, and he's trying to get better. But DB room, here we go. We got quite a few. Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis, Khalil Dorsey, Stephen Gilmore, Emmanuel Mosley, Morris Norris, Ennis Rakestraw, Amik Robertson, Kendall Vildor, DB Brian Branch. And then when you slide down to the safety room, you have Chalon Garnes, Brandon Joseph, Kirby Joseph, Ifeatu Melifonwu, CJ Moore, Lauren Strickland. I feel like we're missing somebody. Maybe not. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 safeties. I mean, overall, you have, 6 safeties and, 12 DBs, cornerbacks? Let me go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 corners. At one point, we had 12. So I'm not sure what happened, but we have at least 16 DBs entering this training camp. 16. And that's going to be a tough number to get down to. Last year, I believe that they kept 5 safeties, and 6 DBs, I think is what they kept last year. So about 11 players overall. I think that they could get away with 10, but I'm thinking that they're probably going to try to keep 12 as a max number. Somewhere between 10 and 12 is where they're going to land, and that's going to be a tough list to get down to. I think that there's some clear ones here that obviously aren't going to make this team, but overall, this is going to be the position to watch. And Dan Campbell had this to say. He says, we have so many options right now, so much competitiveness. The talent level, the competitiveness, the versatility. Honestly, we have no idea who our starting lineup's going to be right now, and it's exciting. It's so good. There's no telling who's going to be our outside corners, who's going to be our nickel, who's going to be our safeties. This thing is wide open across the board. It's going to be great to let these guys compete and just go after it and see who goes and is going to be the most reliable guys for us, the most dependable. It's exciting. Eric, I know you're excited about this group.
Heck yeah. I can't wait to see Rakestraw. That's the one I want to see a whole bunch in the preseason. And Rick here in the comments says, Matthew Stafford is going to pick on Terrion right off the bat. He better be ready. Well, I'll tell you what, I think Terrion Arnold's going to pick on Matt Stafford right away, and he's going to pick him off. So that's my call. Terry and Arnold if they pick in game 1 of the NFL season.
That'd be great. That would be great. All right, so the last two topics here, running back, or last topic really, the running back room. Look, it's no secret what's going on here. Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery are 1 and 2. Now I'm going to put a wild take out here. Wild take. I think that Montgomery's snaps are going to be less this year. I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get a heavier role.
Yep.
And I think that comes from, a couple of different schematic things here that Jahmyr Gibbs can do that maybe Montgomery can't. And that's when you start doing an empty set. You bring Jahmyr Gibbs in, and then he kicks out, and while he's in motion, you're hiking that ball. You get his legs moving, and I think that he can get in position quickly to be an option, but I also believe that that's also going to draw the attention of the linebackers, pull the linebackers to one side, and that's where you're going to see Laporta and Amon-Ra start to grab over the middle. There is so many different things you can do. It's going to be so fun to watch how much Ben Johnson has grown this offseason. But with the running back room in particular, I believe that the Lions are probably going to try to keep 4. Obviously, 3 is the magic number. They're going to try to keep 4. And I think that a lot of what that is going to depend on how many tight ends do they keep, 3 or 4? How many cornerbacks, DBs overall, do they keep, 10 to 12? Defensive line is a problem because we're so deep. Linebacker room is a problem because we're so deep. So somewhere they're going to have to lose one to make one up. Now, here's a paraphrase quote, from Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes combined. It's they're going to keep the best 53 players, period. Doesn't matter what position. They want the best 53 players on this team. So if they end up with an extra offensive lineman versus a defensive lineman, that's going to happen. If they end up with an extra DB versus a wide receiver, it's just going to happen. They don't care. They want the best 53 players on this team. They will figure out a way to get them in the game, and that's where players like Sione Vaki are extremely important to that because he can play both ways, and he's someone that is brought in as a running back, even though he played safety in college, and he's going to get looks at both spots during training camp. He's coming in as a special teams weapon. He's someone that can, return kicks if needed. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he is a good blocker. He can play with downfield progression quite nicely. I've watched a lot of tape on him. The guy's got vision. Like, he sees things that others don't see. And he's got great hands. So there's a lot of positional flex for him too. There's a lot of things that he can do: offense, defense, special teams. So because of that, I think that I'm comfortable with the Lions keeping 3 here, but we'll talk more about that on Friday. But with the running back room, Craig Reynolds could be the odd man out. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery are the best 1-2 punch in the league. Some fun stats and facts from last year is that combined pair, I believe, are the only duo in NFL history to have combined 1,000 yards or more each and 10 touchdowns or more each in a single season. That's an NFL record. I think it's an NFL record. I heard it the other day on a podcast. I have not fact checked it, but according to what they were talking about, that's an NFL record. The Lions had multiple records that kind of lined up with that, and then also having 4 players with 10 touchdowns or more, 3 players with 1,000 or more yards and 10 touchdowns, and then 2 running backs with 1,000 combined yards or more and 10 touchdowns apiece. Incredible, man. 4 players pretty much made up the entire offense. 4. That's nuts, especially when you look at how many guys are behind them. They can probably contribute, a nickel, 500, 800, 400, and a couple of TDs. So Lions are in a great position. Running back room, what do you think about Sione Vaki and how that room's going to shape out?
This is really different this year. In the past, it's always been Craig Reynolds and, a bunch of guys that were not really super great. We had the kid we got from the UDFA we got from Minnesota last year. He got hurt in the preseason, never really did much. I think he's coming back this year. Give it a try in preseason. But that third and fourth, especially that fourth running back, if we keep that fourth one, that is going to be one heck of a battle. And whether it's Vaki or whether it's Craig Reynolds or one of these other guys, this is different this year. I think the Lions are going to more of an electric type of running style. You know, you got your thunder and lightning with Montgomery and Gibbs. And I really, truly believe that Gibbs is going to be our featured number one this year until he isn't. And the only way he isn't, I think, is with injury. Because that kid has the ability to be the next Christian McCaffrey, whatever you want to call it. 1,500 plus yards, bunch of touchdowns, bunch of catches, and he is going to take over games like he did in the playoffs. The only thing that Gibbs really needs to work on is holding on to the ball. We don't need any more fumbles like we had in the NFC Championship game, and I know that was only one of maybe 2 fumbles he had all year, but one is too many. We really got to work on keeping that ball safe and not giving it away. And I think the Lions were -1 in takeaways last year in the plus minus category. So I'd like to see it where the Lions are plus a whole bunch, not just right about even on the year.
Were they -1?
Yeah, I think it was -1 for the turnovers last year.
I thought that they ended up on the positive side.
Oh, really?
I thought they did. Let me take a quick look here. I know I have this stat somewhere.
Yeah.
No, it says that they were dead even for some reason.
Yeah. The one I looked at said -1. So even dead even -1, man, we gotta change that around. We need some more interceptions, we need some more turnovers, and we need to give up less turnovers. So, but Gibbs is going to be an absolute all-pro Pro Bowler this year. You watch.
So, I mean, I'm glad you just brought up turnover margin, and I guess we'll finish on that. I got to fix something real quick. Give me one sec. I'll take that out, and we'll take that out. Save. Okay, so turnover margin. When you look at the teams that played at a high level last year, and that wraps up our roster for today. Jake Bates tells all. Hutchinson talks about the Super Bowl in 24. This year's the year. Linebacker room, positional battles. Friday, we're going to be getting into the 53-man projected. But let me touch base on this real quick. When we talk about turnover margins, turnover margin is huge. There's 2 things that I've always spoken highly about. Number 1 is keeping your opponent under 20 points. If you can keep your opponent under 20 points, you're going to win a lot of ball games. If you go back and look at last year's scores, like just do this for fun today. Just go back and look at week 1 and look at all of the scores, whether it's ESPN or whatever. Just type in on the Google machine, NFL week 1 scores 2023, and then just start going through week by week. And then this is a fun exercise. Go and look at how many teams had less than 20 points. Who was the winner of that game? Now, there's a couple of anomalies here. If both teams were under 20 points, obviously that can skew things a little bit. But look at the teams that scored more than 20. Did the opponent score less than 20? Who won, right? And then where did that team end up at the end of the season? I can guarantee you right now, out of the top 10 or 12 teams in the league, the majority of those top 10 teams held their opponent to under 20 points. Not only that, they averaged less than 20 points per game. You combine that with turnover margin, And a lot of those teams that had less than 20 points also kept teams, had the better turnover margin on average throughout the season. So let's take a look at some turnover margin stats here from last year and were some of these teams the better teams in the NFL. Baltimore Ravens led all teams with a plus 12 differential. The New York Giants didn't have a great season, but their defense was plus 12 in differential. The New Orleans Saints didn't have a great season, but their defense was plus 11. If they would have actually had an offense that could have moved the ball, I mean, imagine if the Lions were plus 12 last year. 12 more opportunities to score a touchdown. We probably wouldn't have lost any game but the Ravens game last year.
Yep.
So Pittsburgh Steelers, I think they squeaked into the playoffs, plus 11. So good defense. Offense couldn't do crap. Bengals, again, great defense, led by DJ Reader, by the way, through week 15. Didn't make the playoffs because they didn't have, smoking Joe Burrow or Joe Cool, whatever you want to call him. And please, Joe, don't ever wear a suit with an open back. Like, come on, dude, what are you doing? Anyway, Cincinnati Bengals plus 10. Again, good defense, terrible offense. But then you start to get into some of the better teams. Dallas Cowboys plus 10. Good offense, good defense. Houston Texans plus 10. That is the best way to help prop up a rookie quarterback. You give him more opportunity to put points on the board. And clearly they had a good season. San Francisco 49ers, Super Bowl runner-up, plus 10. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, lost in the playoffs to the Lions at plus 8. Denver Broncos, decent defense. Offense couldn't get it together with Russell Wilson, plus 4. So now you're seeing a big drop-off. So plus 10 to plus 8, plus 8 to plus 4. Chicago Bears, I don't think I need to say a lot there, but they had a pretty decent defense, plus 3. Buffalo Bills, 50-50 offense-defense, plus 2. Indianapolis Colts, man, they left a lot on the table last year, plus 2. Dolphins, plus 2. Seattle Seahawks, plus 2. And then you get into the Lions and the Packers and the Chargers, all at plus 0. So good teams, right? The reason why they won games and weren't able to affect the score with turnover margin is because they had high-power offense. The Lions did. The Chargers had a high-power offense. They also had a really good defense. They got more stops, but they just didn't get a lot of turnovers. Where was our Achilles heel last year? That's a tough one because even the best team in the NFL as far as turnover margin only had 2 more interceptions than the Lions. The Ravens, 18 to the Lions, 16. But they came up with 13 fumbles to our 7. The big difference was they kind of flip-flopped interceptions for fumbles. So we had 11 fumbles last year, which was like 3rd in the league. 3rd or 4th in the league. And only threw 12 interceptions, which I'm cool with that. 12 interceptions is not bad, especially when you're chucking as many, balls up that Jared Goff does. His TD to interception ratio is plenty fine. If he had 12 interceptions again this year, I mean, I'm just expecting that he has at least 35 TDs through the air, 30 TDs through the air again. Jared Goff is pretty darn accurate. I'm not worried about that stuff, but the fumbles are a problem. You can't be fumbling the ball like this. And I guarantee that Jahmyr Gibbs, and this is kind of what you were talking about, he's got to pay more attention. In Montgomery, like I said, my biggest knock on Montgomery coming to the Lions last year, and everyone scathed me for it, when I said, look, the dude has a problem fumbling the ball. And they're like, yeah, but he's only had 6 fumbles in 4 years or whatever. And I'm like, just look, you got to watch the tape. He does not protect the ball. That's why he loses it. And we saw that happen last year. Just not protecting the ball, not being safe with the ball. Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, he's a rookie. He's expected to have, mistake here or there. I don't think that that's going to be a problem for him. I think he'll be able to turn it around. But Montgomery, I'm a little bit worried about with his fumbles. So I'm glad you brought up turnover margin because it's big. And having a player like Terrion Arnold and another player like Ennis Rakestraw and Carlton Davis, and Amik Robertson, and now Ifeatu Melifonwu and Kirby Joseph, man, do we have some ball hawks. We got guys that are not just going to go after the ball in the air, but they're going to punch it out every opportunity they get. Watch Jack Campbell's tape. You see that club hand coming down every tackle. So they're teaching it, right? They're preaching it and they're teaching it in practice. Now it just has to show up on the film. So any final comments today? Turnover margin, whatever you want to talk about for the last minute or two of the show here.
Nope. I just got to get going because it is time for the shop to open. So
I'm not real sure what the heck just happened there. But you were saying you had to get rolling. So Eric, thank you for joining again this morning. I hope you guys enjoy the 4th of July tomorrow. Celebrate our nation's independence. We'll see you guys Friday morning. Take care. Have a great day. And go America. America. We'll see you guys.
Adam Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was